Good morning. Happy Friday. I feel like I need to come up with a here's Johnny for all our future webinars. I'll have to work on that. Looks like we've got people still logging in, so I will talk slowly through I'm just kidding. Okay, this is us, RE Journals. We are super glad to be here. Midwest Real Estate News, Illinois Real Estate Journal, Minnesota Real Estate Journal. I promise you someday we are going to have a Wisconsin Real Estate Journal. That's been on my to-do list for a year and a half now. I'll make it happen. What I have to say is we have become part of a bigger company. So we now publish 6 publications in 17 states, and we had planned on doing events in 104 events this year in those 17 different states. And the train stopped, just like it did for most of the rest of you. We pivoted to webinars. We would not be able to do this and see at least a few faces and hear from at least a few people if we didn't have sponsors. So I definitely want to thank Northwind, Physicians Realty Trust, Berkadia, Corfac, SIOR, Davis and Kilthau, and this is us down in the corner, RE Journals. That's our new logo. We just wouldn't be able to do this without folks like you, so I appreciate it. I appreciate your time speaking, and to everybody that's sponsored. If you're watching this online, on your phone or your computer, there's a button at the top that says Reconnect. So I'm showing on our server, we have 5 bars. So if you have a problem watching, it's you, it's not me. Just like we're dating, it's you, not me. Hit the reconnect button. That solves 99% of your problems. If that doesn't solve it, try using Google Chrome. That's been the browser we've had the best luck with, even on your phone. So if you decide to watch this on your phone because you can't get it on your computer, then download Google Chrome on your phone. Use it that way. That works really well. Next, the chat room. So to your right, below you on your phone, but to your right on the computer, you'll see the chat room. Everybody should go in there, enter in, it's automatically going to say your name. So put in the company you work for, part of the country you're from, and start networking with the other people online. So if you see somebody you know, feel free to say hi. The chat room enables that. But more importantly, this is where you're going to be able to ask questions of our panelists. So light up that chat room. Yes, Sam Denny says echo. We do have a little bit of an echo this morning. Internet's a busy place. We do the best we can. Polls also. So you'll see your chat room will get covered up with a poll when I throw a poll out there. So just watch that, answer our polls, and then don't forget the chat room is right there still. We will replay this in its entirety on our YouTube channel, where you can also watch our other 30 webinars we've done since COVID-19 broke out. So rejournals-.com/video replay will take you to our YouTube channel. You can also access all of our stuff now on our RE Journals webpage, just in the main section. So that will get you there. That's housekeeping for us. What I want to do now is ask all 4 of these panelists. We've got a good group here today, and it's very diverse. So everybody's going to come at this from a little bit different angle, which I think is going to be really beneficial to those of you watching. We're going to start with Ralph. I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves, where they work, but more importantly, what are they working on right now? So we're 9 weeks into COVID-19. A lot of stuff has happened in the past 9 weeks, but what are you doing today in your job, and what's going on? So Ralph, we're going to start with you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. My name is Ralph DiPasquale. I'm a managing director at Berkadia. I'm in investment sales. Those that aren't familiar with Berkadia, hopefully you are. But Berkadia is essentially Warren Buffett's commercial mortgage and investment sales team. It's a joint venture. Anyway, 30 billion last year. I think we'll get close to that this year, but we'll see. Anyway, and I specialize primarily in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota. So what am I doing on a day-to-day basis? Well, for the last 6 weeks or 7 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it's been, trying to put out a lot of fires that have come up in transactions, trying to keep deals together, trying to figure out new ways to do business, essentially, in this post-COVID world. Or I should say, in the midst of the COVID world right now. We don't know what it's going to be looking like at the end of this process, but some of the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, essentially is trying to figure out when we're selling a property, for example, how do you actually do property tours? How do you meet with people? How do you show people properties from that standpoint? And one of the things that we've started to use a little bit more than we have in the past is virtual tours. For example, where we'll take a client through property on a virtual basis using a 360 robot that's been, I'm sure you've seen those in where you could click on a certain spot in a room or at the property and show that. The other thing that we've been doing, as I said before, is trying to either put deals together. We've actually started marketing a few deals post COVID, breaking out here and getting some pretty good traction on those. We've had deals, obviously go by the wayside. We've had properties that have been put on hold until this settles down a little bit further, and we've also sold deals. We've closed probably 6 or 7 deals, actually 8 in the last 7 weeks or so. So, which has also been another challenge in terms of how do you get those done. Anyway, we'll talk, I think, more about that. I'm not sure how much we should do that right now, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves as well.
I am going to go around and mute people. The chat room is blowing up at me about the echo. So, Aaron, start talking, but all of you panelists, I'm going to turn you off one at a time, and I'll let you know who's echoing, and then we'll figure out how to just turn your microphone on while you're talking, and we'll minimize the echo. So go ahead, Aaron.
Terrific. Thank you very much, and good morning. My name is Aaron Metta. I'm the Senior Vice President of Northwind Financial. We're a direct bridge lender based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. We are very fortunate. We raise our capital on Bloomberg through fixed rate funds, through bonds. So we have been active during these most difficult times. We're very niche-y. We have one product, and that's it. We look for projects that need rehab, renovation, or build out. We base our loan to value on the fully stabilized value, not the as is. So we're basically, a construction loan type components, guidelines for non-construction projects. And we'll talk more about that later today. A day in the life. So with our current customers, for the past 8-9 weeks, we've been working with them on the PPP, disaster relief, making sure that their applications are filled out properly, filled out on time, being the first in and making sure they get those funds. Those funds and their ability to get them really are very dependent upon them being able to make their payments to us. So I have a team that's working with all of our clients in ensuring that they receive those funds if they qualified for them. Now that we're past that, what we're doing is we're talking about action plans. What is your action plan timing for reopening? Obviously, it's state dependent. In some states, it's actually county dependent. So that's on the back end what we're doing. What is your action plan to get out of this and to hopefully get through this and succeed? On the front end, we are still lending. We've been very aggressive. We've doubled our marketing, but we have not changed our guidelines, which is very unusual. What we have changed is our property type. And I'll say this several times today. We have a flight to quality and a flight to safety. And that is the only project type that we look at now is multifamily. That's it. We're going to fill our funds with multifamily and strengthen our funds, strengthen our company. We are putting things in like interest reserves, not only for payments, but interest reserve in case of default, which we've always done, but we've extended those. So there's been a lot of flight to safety in the way that we're lending, we're underwriting, and the way that we're moving forward. So there's a lot going on right now. I know prior to the call, we were talking about states opening up and some of the issues / fights that are going on in the courts. This is a very, very fragile time, and I think people are ready to get back to work. I really do, across the country. So I'll leave it at that, and I know we'll have more discussions on those topics. That's for sure.
Amen. You know how I feel. So I did find out, Mike, I think it's you that was feeding back, so I turned your microphone off. We'll do Amy first, but make sure you hit your microphone again when you're on. And then anybody else that's not talking, if you could mute your mic, that will help minimize the feedback we're getting this morning. Amy, it's to you.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining us. My name is Amy Sovine. I'm one of the regional asset managers and the training specialist at Physicians Realty Trust. We're a publicly traded healthcare REIT, and I personally oversee just under 3 million square feet of healthcare real estate in Wisconsin, Illinois, and the Northeast part of the country. And I work with 9 different management companies in my territory of the United States. Physicians Realty Trust is a pure play, MOB REIT. All we do is healthcare real estate. We didn't get into hospitals or senior living. And we have, over 14 million square feet in 31 states, over 260 assets, over 4.4 billion in real estate owned. So for a 6-year-old company, not too bad. What am I doing here and now? Lately, I'd say, in addition to just doing the regular day-to-day asset management functions and my training specialist job with our internal teams and our property management teams, we've been, on daily receiving requests for rent relief from our tenants, and we need to go through the process of analyzing, some of their financials and analyzing the tenant needs and juggling how we can help our tenants and our healthcare partners. We're tracking the utilization of the space in every single building, keeping our finger on the pulse. We are having regular meetings internally and externally with all of our management companies to understand, how can we prepare the buildings for what's to come here on the back end of the virus and reopening. But we are still battling, day-to-day positive cases in the buildings. So we kind of discuss how we can arm ourselves, prevent these cases. How are we responding to them when they do happen in our buildings? So
I got to ask a clarifying question. So you find out when there's a case in your building. How does that mechanism work? And then be a little descriptive. What exactly do you do? What does that mean? Super cleaning then after that, or do you close it down?
right,
Or what's that?
you could say that. Yes. So we have asked all of our tenants repeatedly to inform management as soon as they get wind of a positive case, whether it was one of their patients or one of their staff or anybody that they may have heard of in the building. We do a terminal clean in the suite, in the common areas. Within hours, we have teams on site to handle that. And then we communicate with the entire building. We do inform all of the other tenants in the building and the systems so that they know and can do what they need to do on their end, if anything.
So do the cleaners, I'm envisioning something that looks like Ghostbusters with the packs on their back and the blower. Is that the kind of cleaning that you do? Is it the spraying or?
Yeah, so there's different chemicals and different approaches and how high they have to go up to clean all of the vertical surfaces and things like that. I think, sometimes you use a local team, sometimes you use the big Service Masters and Paul Davises of the world. So it's different by team that's going out there to clean, but essentially they're all following the CDC guidelines on how to clean when there's a positive case.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to talk a lot more about that because I think reopening is on a lot of people's minds, and how to do that seems to vary from owner to owner. So that'll be interesting. Okay, Mike, pop your microphone back on, and it's to you.
Thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Mike Van Summeren. I'm an attorney at Davis & Kilthau. We are a full service business law firm. My practice consists of real estate, capital markets, and general corporate. Focusing primarily on real estate. I'm a member of the real estate team. In the last 6 weeks, we have been working from home. We're located in Wisconsin and in Milwaukee, and Green Bay, and all of our offices have been on a work from home basis for the last 6 weeks. And during that time, we've been trying to pretty much put out fires, a lot of amending and extending leases, trying to figure out how we can make sure our landlord clients are able to continue paying their mortgages, and in turn, how we can help their tenants make. As the states have started to look to reopen, we have been working on taking advantage of the opportunities that are going to be in the market. So we have a bunch of deals that are starting to come back. So day to day is now focused on what kind of safeguards do we have to put in place for our landlord clients to, protect themselves legally as their tenants start back to work. And also, for our corporate clients and our business clients, what kind of steps do they have to take for their employees? And at the same time, how can we start getting deals done? What are lenders doing? Working with lenders, working with buyers and sellers to get deals back on track.
That's awesome. I've heard from a lot of attorneys that they're busy or getting really busy. And I think it's a great time to be talking about what the law is and renegotiating things. So it'll be interesting to talk through some of these issues with you. All right. So we're 15 minutes in, and I really want to get to reopening. I think that's the thing that's on most people's mind. But before we do that, I just like to go back over the last 9 weeks, and we'll do a little Hollywood Squares reverse this time. We'll start with Mike, and talk about some of the victories maybe that you had over the last 9 weeks, or the horror stories. What were some things that surprised you, or maybe forecast what things are going to be like in the future?
Sure. So I would say overall, our retail clients got hit the hardest. I think that won't surprise a lot of people. And so a lot of our victories were getting our shopping center clients right-sided. A lot of lenders that I've talked with, they did a blanket 90-day forbearance, or they worked with their clients. There was different approaches by different lenders. There was a lot of flexibility. Where there was less flexibility was in the CMBS market, because that loan is now securitized and owned by investors and served by a servicer that has its hands tied for the most part in what it can and can't do absent a default. So we did a lot of creative approaches with our landlord clients to work with their tenants to keep open. And whether that was educating those landlords who could then educate their tenants as to the PPP loan program. I spent a lot of time on that. That was coming down, and as many of you probably know, the rules have changed and continue to change even after the money has gone out. But that was a lifeline for a lot of tenants, which in turn turned into a lifeline for a lot of landlords. We were getting creative and getting servicers on the CMBS side to buy into the fact that for those clients that had impounds and escrows of tenant improvements and commission allowances, and as well as property tax impounds, being able to use some of those to make mortgage payments with the idea that they're going to have to also make up the impounds at a later date. There was more flexibility there. Going forward, what we're seeing is, talking with lenders especially, there's a lot of discussion that retail is still and is going to continue to suffer, and that bankruptcies are more numerous on the tenant side than what's expected or than what's known so far, mostly because you can't hold a liquidation sale if you can't open up. And so without that ability to hold a liquidation sale, creditors are not interested in tenants filing bankruptcy, and and retailers don't want to file bankruptcy if they can't try and knock that down, those costs down, and maximize the size of the bankruptcy estate. So it sounds like from my discussions, there's still more hurt in the retail sector. Manufacturing looks like it's going to be strong, and everything I've been hearing on office is it's kind of a coin flip. And so that is kind of what, our clients are in all segments of the market. So, it's jumping from one market segment to another, figuring out where the opportunities are, where the risks are.
That's interesting about bankruptcy. I hadn't heard any of that before. I just assumed things. I guess I didn't assume anything, but that's interesting. So, Amy, what's kind of surprised you? Maybe talk about what it was when you first found out, what you thought and what you had to deal with, or any little victories you might have had along the way over the last 9 weeks.
Yeah, I think those go hand in hand, the surprises and the victories, right? If you handle it all the correct way. I guess the most surprising thing was the immediate panic and the fear of the unknown by the healthcare tenants, that the healthcare systems and the independent practices throughout our medical office buildings. Day one of shutdown, we were starting to get calls of, what does this mean for us? Can you help us with rent? Like people just automatically assuming the worst. And, it became a delicate balancing act over the last 9 weeks. Our leadership team is incredible with, just keeping everything organized, staying calm, and just making extremely educated decisions. I mean, being a publicly traded company, we can't just open our pockets to everybody all the time, but we have done a really nice job of, balancing the requests based on the needs, helping the smaller independent practices, trying to help the big systems when we can. And, whether it's timing or how we help them, we got very creative, similar to what Mike was talking about. Do you do a blend and extend? Do you do deferral? Do you add 6 months onto the back end of the lease? So it's about balance. It's about creativity. It's about empathy. We truly value our partnerships with each and every tenant. And we even went so far as to help get them some consultants to walk them through the process of which federal aid programs they might qualify for and how to apply for that and what to do with that and what those each meant. And, doing the best that we could while still paying our dividend, while still paying the bills to operate the buildings in a Class A manner, while still training and educating our staff and our management, partners across the country. So, and I'd say at the end of this, surprising, but also victory, all in handling all of that, our utilization rate in the buildings never really dipped below 75%. So as much, that's just proof to how viable the healthcare industry is and how strong the healthcare sector of real estate is. But, they were still able to see the emergent cases, even though they had to defer elective surgeries and preventive medicine. And obviously we watched telehealth kind of ramp itself up with little to no choice. So that's where I was at for the last 9 weeks.
Okay, go back a second. You said utilization. I'm not a medical office person. Does that mean your tenants were in the building and people were coming into your buildings?
Correct.
Wow, that's I go to our office building and it's a ghost town.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a change. I mean, you really, I would think so. Are you on campus medical then? Or so do you have surgery centers and things?
I don't remember the exact stats, but absolutely. We have on-campus MOBs, we have ASCs, ambulatory surgery centers, EDs, emergency departments, just not hospitals and not senior living or anything like that. We have a few LTACs that we acquired early on in our after IPO, but yeah, so, those healthcare practitioners were still coming in, managing phone calls, they were still working on returning, pushing out the appointments and trying to start up the telehealth programs and still see, emergent cases and all of that. So there, it dropped a little bit in some buildings. We saw very little activity and some were in full swing. So on average throughout our entire portfolio, it didn't dip much below 75% utilization, and it's been picking up since then as everybody's starting to reopen.
Wow. I want to keep moving, but there's a lot of other questions I have in reopening because you probably have the most challenging reopening of anyone we've had on a panel. Now that you think through, there's probably going to be a lot of people walking through your doors that are infected. But we got to keep moving here. Aaron's to you. Tell us what some of the horror stories, victories, what happened at first or anything similar.
Sure, I'll start off with the victories. Let's start off on a positive note. So we've had a webinar prior to this one where I think this is across the board. Very pleasantly surprised to see the minimal delinquency rates with regards to multifamily. So that sector we feel very good with. It's hard to say, but the government did a nice job with the PPP and the disaster relief in getting the funds in the hands of business owners so that they can stay current, stay whole, work with their lenders so that they're not in a default. I think, we've talked about this many times, our economy's layered. If you start having default rates in commercial, it's going to work its way down, and it's going to be, a snowball picking up steam and size that you just can't stop. So I think on the positive side, in the short term, as a lender, direct lender, what we have seen, these funds that they've put into the market have done a very good job in the short term. I think with this next relief package that's coming out, this is no time to play games. And I know that they're doing that. I'm not getting the politics of it. But let's talk about the negative now. Okay, let's talk about hospitality. Let's talk about entertainment. And let's talk about the airlines. Those three sectors are going to take a lot of time to come back. You need disposable income and you need consumer confidence, right? That's going to take time. So if you're looking at, what's tough, the horror stories, or what we're really, really worried about, for us, it's hospitality and entertainment. I threw in the airlines because it's such a big sector and such a big number that those companies and those, those segments of our economy cannot fail. We can't let them fail, but we have to find ways, in addition to the government, to bring them back, or just to get them to start their way back to generating revenue and making a profit. And that's what really scares me. If we don't start opening up soon, and the delays that we have in opening up in states that, could open up by county. I will say this in closing, I'm still doing site visits. I'm still traveling. I take all the safety precautions, but I was in Tennessee. Well, what did Tennessee do? They opened up by county. Well, you look at someone like Michigan, where I'm at, we have many, many counties that can open up. The longer you keep companies down and the longer that you keep them from generating a revenue, generating a profit, especially if their customers are net 30, if they're down for 60 days, they might not be getting a payment for 120 days. And I don't think companies are that liquid enough to get through that. So you talk about horror stories or concerns, it's that back end, that hospitality, entertainment, companies in states that stay down too long. We all have to be very, very careful of it. We all have to be, communicating what, safely and effectively and efficiently opening up and to get this economy going. Or you stall it too long and it's going to be scary. It could get really, really scary out there.
Yeah, you mentioned liquidity on the corporate side. I know households don't have that kind of liquidity to go 90 days. June's going to be a scary month.
It is. And two things, disposable income, right, and consumer confidence. Those two things right there are what hospitality and entertainment live on, period. And you have to have those, and you can't have those if your state's shut down. And that's just the way it is. And we've got to get this figured out and get it figured out quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I found out, I was on a beach on spring break, and it was a Wednesday. I spent half the day on the phone. I still hung out on the beach, but when we went back to the condo, the first thing I did was look how many people are employed in hospitality and how many people are employed in retail. And it was, it was astonishing. 35 million people in this country. And that's come to be true. Are out of work or about to be out of work. It could get ugly. I like your positivity. I'm going to leave that. That'll be what we'll go with. Hey, Ralph. So Ralph, to you, for the last 9 weeks, some horror stories or victories or thoughts on it?
So some surprises, I guess, pleasant surprises. I think a lot of people, and by the way, just to backtrack a little bit, I specialize just in multifamily. That's all I do. My team, we have a team of about 10 people that are in about 9 states that we work collectively as a team. Berkadia is about 120 across the country, but most of our business is multifamily. We have a hospitality group that's fortunately taking it on the chin a little bit right now. But those are really the two sectors. So having said that, a little bit of background. A lot of people were predicting April numbers, April collections would fall off the table, and they didn't. I was always in the camp that I think the April numbers were going to be okay in terms of collections because it was so new. I think a lot of people still had, auto pay set up and still have money and still jobs. And I think, I kept saying that the May numbers probably might be a more telltale sign. Well, based on the 360,000 units or so that we've surveyed across the Midwest, but in other parts of the country as well, May collections are looking pretty good so far. And now, so the attention now turns to more what happens at the end of the stimulus, the end of the additional unemployment. And we were having a conversation about this with somebody this morning, that the Midwest, in talking to my brethren across the country, I think the Midwest is holding up relatively stronger than a lot of the coasts, or the Texas and some of the other markets. And that are from a collection standpoint, and an employment standpoint too. Maybe Michigan might be an exception a little bit there, but I don't know enough. But so I would say that's been my pleasant surprise so far. And that's kind of the horror story at the same time, is how do you forecast that going forward in terms of collections, and how is that going to affect values, and both on the investment sales side and financing side. We've actually closed, as I said before, we've actually closed some deals, probably 6 or 7 in the last 8 weeks. Some of the challenges there are interesting things that we take for granted in a normal transaction. Is the title company going to be open? How do you record this stuff? How do you get lender inspections to happen? How do you get third parties in there? Things like that we're working our way through, and have been able to work through to get some deals done. The 1031 market, even with the little bit of an extension now that they've granted, has been very positive. So a lot of the transactions that we've been working on include 1031 money, and so that's a bonus, obviously, from that standpoint. We haven't seen a real divergence in pre-BOV pricing versus post. I mean, some. And the deals that have fallen by the wayside or in process potentially, we're seeing anywhere from a 5 to a 15% discount that investors are looking at. And that's not only in the Midwest, but other parts of the country I've heard as well. So, from that standpoint, I think I've been pleasantly surprised at the resiliency of the marketplace. I am very glad, sorry to my other panel folks that have other property types. Multifamily, as Aaron said, has done remarkably well so far. People still need a place to live, and especially being at home, working from home. Landlords have actually experienced higher retention rates, for example, which is a good thing from that standpoint. So I've said it before, and I keep saying it. I think if after this is over, or at least the world has come back to some normalcy, I don't think it'll ever be completely normal again. I mean, pre-COVID normal. But if multifamily wasn't the darling child of the industry before, it's certainly going to be, I think, going forward, even more so.
I love it. Aaron's shaking his head. Yes.
Absolutely. It is. And the term I like to use, it's the flight to quality and the flight to safety for lenders, for buyers. It's what we're all going to try to fill our funds with, because, what do people spend their money on? They spend their money on food first and the roof over their head second. We don't lend money on food. I can tell you multifamily will be very, very popular, and it's getting the other sectors up and running as quick as possible. We have to.
Hey, I want to pivot to opening, because that's the thing that's on everybody's mind. But James Smith has a good question here for probably Ralph and Aaron. Multifamily, what are the collection rates at the top end, the mid, and the low end? Does anybody have statistics or anecdotal evidence of what's going on there?
Yeah, for the low to mid, they're in the low to mid 90s. I just had a national webinar that we were on, and we did some research on that. I can't talk to the luxury, so I'll turn that over.
So as I mentioned, we've surveyed a real-time survey. Probably, at this point, it's probably closer to 380,000 units, mostly across the Midwest, but in other parts of the country as well. National players, smaller players, everybody. And that's absolutely right, Aaron. We're probably somewhere in April. They were actually, in some cases ahead of year over year. And May has started off strong. And again, at this point in the month, relative to last year, for example, they're still in the 95-ish% range. And so that includes luxury. Luxury might even actually be a little bit higher if you break that out separately. That's the market that people are either paying if they have lost their job, probably haven't, but those are mostly the people that can work from home. They're not the restaurant employee or the whatever factory employee that is laid off temporarily. They might be a professional or whatever it might be, and they're either paying their rent out of savings or they're just paying somehow. And so, and most of those people have not lost their jobs either. So I would venture to say that if you break that number out separately, it's probably even higher than that at this point. Now, going forward, who knows? But we're hopeful.
Can I say one more thing? And I don't
Absolutely.
mean to talk too much. I apologize, but what we've been finding is that the minimal delinquency rates are because of the stimulus packages, right? Because our unemployment rate's so high, and we have another stimulus package that you're talking about. So we have to have it. But I think this next stimulus package is vitally important that they do it right and that we start to open up at the same time. If we can do that with a $3 trillion package, which has to be done, because you can't let all these companies fail. But if you do that and you open up safely, we can get out of this thing. And if you don't, we're not gonna. And it honestly, and I do a lot of these regional calls, Todd, and national calls, so that we as a direct lender have our finger on the pulse. If you don't, it's going to get very, very ugly out there. But we can do this, but we need to open up and open up quick and intelligently with one more stimulus package, because the stimulus package is what's getting us, the rental payment.
And the only thing I'll add to that real quick too, is that I was actually just watching something, I think it was Ben Carson yesterday talking about housing just in general, and obviously extended their moratorium on foreclosures and evictions for an extra month, essentially. And so part of what came out of that, at least what I saw, is that this next stimulus package that they're working on will include potential, like, I don't want to say direct payments, but some sort of factor in for housing, essentially either rental or mortgage payments or something along those lines. And I know it's in the House right now that they're working on, but that's part of the next stimulus. Apparently, obviously, it hasn't come through yet, but hopefully we're not going to need it, but at least that's a backstop for multifamily industry and certainly the housing industry.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a poll up here because I kind of forgot about it. You guys asked good poll questions at the beginning. I'll get to them. I want to talk reopening though. So Amy, I'm going to go to you. I think with what we've been getting as a company and the webinars we've been doing is a lot of reopening questions, even related to the details. So what do you think reopening is going to be like, and what are some, even don't be afraid to get into the details down to what kind of cleaning products are you going to use or what kind of requirements you're going to have?
Oh God, I would take up the rest of the time talking about that. There's a lot, but on a macro level, kind of the whole return to normal, piggybacking on what the gentlemen are saying with the stimulus package. I also think what we're going to see more of, or another uptick of, is merger and acquisition opportunities and activity. In my industry, I think there's going to be at the health system level, there could be some more independent practices and smaller health systems that end up having to merge and sell and absorb up into a larger system in order to stay viable. and prevent from closing their doors. So there's those possibilities. I think you might see some monetization opportunities from the bigger health systems. They're struggling to get out of this as well as the little ones are. So there might be, some health systems that are packaging assets. And as we know, cap rates have been very competitive in the healthcare real estate sector. So I think that's, going to continue to be an area where there's a lot of competition and opportunity coming up. Everybody's going to have to be patient as the health systems ramp back up. There's going to be overstressed, scheduling, trying to get caught up from all the deferred appointments. The nurse practitioners and the physician assistants, we need to keep them as much as possible as, considered autonomous providers along with the doctors, because the doctors can't do the whole patient load. I truly feel that the PAs and the NPs are going to need to continue to work alongside those docs to get caught up here. And I think you'll see a little bit of some improvement in the telehealth system. I personally am not convinced it's going to be the new way for health, telemedicine. Personally, my experience has been so-so, but I'd much rather get there in person. And there's some things telehealth can handle on the front end of illness and whatnot, and there's some things that it can't. So there's always going to be demand for the healthcare real estate piece and going into the physical offices. Social distancing as you come out of this is going to continue to exist. Everything in the new normal, will probably entail, in the healthcare settings, wearing masks to your appointments, being screened at the doors potentially. So now you're probably experiencing your healthcare practitioners when you're calling for an appointment. They're asking you questions over the phone. They're pre-screening you, and you may be screened in the front doors of the medical office building too. We aren't, as a landlord, requiring anybody's screens. There's a little bit of a liability and a risk there. However, one of the things that we've been doing for the past 9 weeks and will continue to do is permit any healthcare partners or systems to screen at the entry doors of the building. And that entails sometimes a temperature reading or just a pre-screening of a questionnaire. Have you been exposed to anyone with COVID? Have you had a temperature? Have you had a cough? Please, and they tell you in advance, come with your PPE on, and they do have some spare PPE there. They're protecting themselves with shields at the, check-in and check-out registration desks. Everything's going to look really different, not even in the healthcare sector, but any office building too. We've got to spread out the furniture in the lobby, in the common areas. We need to reduce high touch points, whether that's having one point of ingress and one point of egress, so long as we're not, going against any kind of fire codes. There's a lot of very meticulous pieces that we have put into place that we're asking our managers to put into place in all of our MOBs around the country. And of course, continuing that high level of detailed cleaning and sanitization throughout the day, more day portering on those high touch points, propping doors open where you can, whether it's a stairwell, whether it's if it's a nice day out, the front doors, the back doors, the bathroom doors, or just keep them from latching so you can push with an elbow instead of pulling or pushing with a handle on a hand touch. It's a tremendous detail on the interior and the exterior of the building, and then within the suites as well. Spacing
I don't
out chairs, all of that.
you don't, because I want you to keep going, but I want to go back to a question, a thing you talked about, checking people at the door. So we've had on our webinars landlords say, I'm not a medical professional, so I don't want the liability of checking someone or not checking someone. So that might be an interesting issue. But here's where what do you do if somebody has a high fever? So I've been watching all these numbers across the country, how many people are getting tested, how many people are testing positive. And it's like 10 to 20% of the people tested are positive. If they're testing people that have a fever, that means 80% of them have a fever for some other reason. It could be an infected tooth, right, for a dentist, or it could be a case of an ordinary flu. Are you turning people away if they're symptomatic, or how are you handling that?
So, well, first of all, how we're handling the liability piece of it is we're engaging in a license agreement. And I'm sure Mike is familiar with these and maybe has been working on them also, but it's just moving the liability to the healthcare partner that's taking care of that responsibility. And oftentimes what the health systems are doing is having that now obviously drive through testing. They're putting out trailers for testing. They're trying to keep the potential COVID patients outside of the buildings as much as possible, or have a separate entrance. So if there is any doubt, they can send you around to the side entrance and you can go in that way, or please wait in the parking lot, we'll come out and test you, that kind of stuff. So as much as, it's not foolproof by any means, but if you don't put measures into place to help prevent it as much as possible, then it would just be a free-for-all.
Right. I think that there's going to be day-to-day challenges on the ground. I don't envy you at all. Your email and phone will probably blow up over things like that. I'm not sure if I tested with a high fever, I'd want to go in the side door where everybody else that was sick went through the side door. I'm just going to go home. Well, so we'll see how all that goes. Let's we'll come back to you a little bit, Amy, too. Lots of good stuff. I want to give Mike a chance to chime in on reopening. What are your clients seeing, and what are you seeing from a legal perspective?
Well, I think Amy hit the nail on the head. There's a ton of liability concern as a property owner. Do you, as a landlord, how much of that do you want to take on yourself, and how much do you want to start telling your tenants that they have to take certain steps? A lot of landlords now going forward, you're going to have to start putting into your lease things to try and prevent the damages that were caused by this COVID. As now reopening, not focusing on future growth and future tenants, but just reopening. Wisconsin plaintiffs' attorneys are very ingenious. They're creative, and if there's an opportunity to assign liability to a third party, they're the ones to broach that topic and bring it up in court, and they're very good at what they do. Wisconsin, for instance, has a safe place statute. Now that's typically been applied to structural issues and safe working, but it's for the safe environment, and talks about the health, welfare, and safety of employees and invitees. Well, now you have to wonder, how does COVID fit into that? Because it is so viral. So do employers have to have PPE available for all their employees? If an employer doesn't take reasonable steps for social distancing, providing things, allowing people to work from home, do they start looking like they're going to be subject to some sort of lawsuit for creating an unsafe environment? There's just a ton of stuff that we don't know. On the legal front, as things move forward, we always prepare for the last pandemic or the last event. Financial crisis, we went into talking, we made a bunch of changes. Banks had to be more capitalized to prevent the previous issue. So now the thing that we're going to be talking about is force majeure. In those clauses, everybody, the typical force majeure clause excluded the relief from obligation to pay rent, and oftentimes did not include pandemics or epidemics. Now I can guarantee you a tenant is going to say pandemic coverage, so that if another pandemic comes up and I'm forced to shut down by government mandate, I'm not going to be able to pay rent. I'm not going to pay rent, and they don't want to default under that. Well, that flows up as we had talked about earlier. That now flows up. There's different layers, and so now lenders are going to be negotiating with their borrowers this same language. What are we going to do as far as a force majeure in a loan? Are we going to be able to build in some sort of coverage? And then that's going up to the insurance markets as well, because business interruption insurance often doesn't cover pandemics, and a lot of policies will expressly exclude viral or bacteriological issues or causes of damage. And so, on the rental loss insurance is usually triggered by some sort of fire, flood, some sort of physical damage to the property itself. So there's going to be a lot of changes going forward as people start to take the next steps, and they either have to get more space to allow their employees to do social distancing, or they're opening up new businesses as things start to come back to more normal. we're going to have to incorporate a lot of this stuff into our leases. And on the last front, there is a ton of new legislation coming down. A lot of it COVID specific and short time frames. But there are a number of states that are looking to require insurance companies to cover COVID-related business interruption and pay out on those, which is going to raise the cost of insurance. So there's a ton of liability issues both presently and going forward. There's just it's going to pan out. If you're going to try and fit the same property, the same activities in the same property that you have now, likely you're going to run into some issues because of the requirement that you spread people out more.
So I want to ask a quick follow-up question, Mike. So let's take, I'd like to use myself as an example because I'm a good guinea pig. We're in the event business. We have a reopening plan that it's not as detailed as I would like, but it takes a long time to write a reopening plan. I don't know how companies like Amy's do it. You spend hours typing up documents, but is that something that somebody could bring you to review? Is that part of your role right now with clients?
Yes. In fact, what we're advising our clients to do is when they're putting together the reopening plan to avoid any sort of claim of negligence, one of the best ways to do that is to comply with the government manuals that are being put out on reopening. The federal government has put out a reopening plan for the states and also businesses. Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation has put out a similar plan. I think they did that in conjunction with the Wisconsin Manufacturers. So there are industry groups that are coming together, and if you can follow these things that are promulgated by the federal government, state government, industry groups to the extent possible, that allows for you to make a claim that I'm being as reasonable as possible. Like there's only so much we can do to prevent this without shutting down, and we can't shut down. So we need to be able to show ourselves to have acted in a commercially reasonable manner to get this done. And following these guidelines is a good way to do that. And our firm is set up to look at that from both, a corporate standpoint for employers, or from a real estate standpoint. If you're working on your leases, are you going to start requiring your tenants to take certain precautions, or as a tenant, are you going to require your landlord to take certain precautions? Where are we going to allocate that risk?
Excellent. Well, we're running low on time, so I want to hit a few things, make sure we get to them. There's a question here that I think Amy can answer best from James Smith. We are concerned with possible virus-laden surfaces. What are measures being contemplated over airborne transmission of the virus? Let's see, I got to scroll down. For multi-story buildings, essential HVAC, we are proposing UV measures. What kinds of things are you doing at the building level for that?
So we have put out some recommendations in our building readiness manual in terms of increasing outside air intake. I mean, it depends on the system. There are so many different types of HVAC systems, sequence of operation, HEPA filters, and building startup. Trying to do that much earlier, so the air has the chance to circulate through the building and out before everybody gets there. So we have a full page on HVAC readiness. So that helps answer that a little bit. In terms of the surfaces or airborne anything, obviously everybody's still talking about the PPE aspect and all of that. So.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I'm going to move to Ralph and Aaron for final thoughts on your end. I think what people are asking a lot, though, is where are the future opportunities? So in your multifamily markets, if I'm an investor, where are the opportunities or pockets of opportunities?
I can take that. So you will see, even in multifamily strip malls, office buildings, you're going to see a lot of great opportunities for purchase. DPOs, discounted price offerings. People, I hate to say it, foreclosures are just trying to get out of the property. And investors right now are very active. They're coming to us and they're saying, what can I get? What can I get at a great value? And that's where our fund fits in. So that's why they're coming to us, because we can high leverage based on the fully stabilized value if the property needs that. So the savvy investors, the aggressive investors, the investors that, you know, have the liquid to make it through this, they are looking for more than just multifamily. They're staying away from hospitality, entertainment, but, you know, strip malls, office buildings, and then of course, multifamily. What can we buy, you know, 50, 60, 70 cents on the dollar and, you know, and make it a, you know, make a great fund out of it, make a great portfolio out of it. And we're seeing a lot of that, and they get it. They've been through it before. You know, we went through it in 08, 09, same thing, different cause, obviously, but, you know, pennies on the dollar opportunities. These guys they're always out there and willing to take advantage of these difficult times, and just is what it is.
Ralph, any thoughts? Turn your microphone on, Ralph.
Sorry, my dog was barking, so I turned my mic off.
It's all good. We all have those issues.
Yeah. And just echoing Aaron's thoughts too a little bit, on the multifamily side, well, across all the sectors really, and hospitality, as I said before, our hospitality group is not transacting very much right now. We're getting a lot of calls from investors who are looking for that sort of disconnect right now, or that discount of the biggest problem that we see right now is that, at least in the short term, and this took place in 08, 09 too, again, different circumstances, the economy wasn't chugging along like it was now before this took place, but people are looking for that 25 to 30% discount, 40%, 50% discount on multifamily, and it's not there because it's not warranted. And even the people that are looking for that 15% discount at this point, owners are saying, well, I'm willing to discount a little bit, but my operations are still very strong. Why should I discount at all? And so there's a little bit of a disconnect there right now. Where are the opportunities? I think the opportunities are probably, in terms of people wanting to buy at 50 cents on the dollar, they're not going to be in the multifamily sector, which I think, again, going back to what we said before, I think is going to come out of this even better than it was before. The question is, I guess, on the retail side or even hospitality side, we're actually talking to some people about hospitality projects that they might be able to buy at a steep discount, but then convert it to multifamily or things like that, scenarios like that. I guess the real question becomes, industrial, by the way, is doing still fairly well, especially distribution space. But like retail, for example, or hospitality, yeah, you're buying it at 50 cents on the dollar, but is it going to be worth that dollar anymore at some point in the future? That's the question. Or is it going to be worth 60 cents from where it was before going forward? So that's the real question. But again, on the opportunity side, I think it's going to be more in those sectors than in the multifamily. Not to say that there's going to be some great opportunities, I think, in the multifamily side, just because of where I think multifamily is going to go into the future.
We're at 11 a.m. Central. I want to open it up to these folks for final thoughts. If you have to drop off, I want to remind you that I'm going to put our YouTube address up here on the screen real quick. So we do have a place where you can go to catch the rest of this, because I'll probably spend another 5 minutes giving final thoughts. So if you have to drop off, it's okay. Just click on that link. We'll send it to you. Let's go again down to Mike. 1 or 2 minutes, final thoughts.
Yeah, I think that, it looks like the worst is maybe over. I'd hate to be wrong on that, but it looks like everybody's trying to reopen, and there's going to be opportunities out there, whether it's in retail, multifamily, industrial. The opportunities are going to be there, but things will be different, and it's important to take the time, for a shameless plug here for me, to to make sure your documents, your lease is right, and that you're protecting yourself in the future. You know, they are predicting that we could have a second wave, which could cause major issues, and we want to make sure that we can protect our clients to the maximum extent possible.
Excellent. Amy?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to remain busy in the healthcare real estate sector for sure. I was looking at the attendee list and I saw quite a few brokers and agents on there that I'm familiar with. Just one of the pieces that we've been working on too for best practices and, you know, kind of into the new norm is on the leasing side of everything. You know, I think Ralph touched on this a little bit with how do you tour the properties during this pandemic, but coming out of this, now that you can start to tour again, just really acting with care and a safety first mentality with the clients. You know, there's the limiting your tours to one broker and two clients, not a whole group of people. Trying to have the management team or janitorial staff open the doors in advance so they're propped open and ready for the tour. Wear your mask and bring extra masks as a courtesy to the clients. Bring sanitizer wipes if you have to turn off the lights and touch switch plates and doorknobs and things like that. And just really showing the clients that you're acting safely out there in the market and in the buildings. Property management would appreciate that as well. So would the landlords, and just leave some extra time for your showings because, and anybody that's going to the doctor or the dentist or anywhere, you may get stopped for pre-screening. You may have to park in a different area. You may have to go in a different entrance. It's going to look very different. So start leaving yourself a little bit of extra time and calling ahead and asking questions and being prepared for your visits and everything.
Amy, I love that advice for the brokers out there. That's the first time I've heard that in 30 webinars. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to try to keep that, try to remind people of that. That's, you know, being courteous is going to be a big thing, I think, the next few months. We got to find a new way to say hello to each other. I'm not sure I'm a fan of bowing, but I'm kind of leaning that way. Yeah, that elbow bump and all that just seems so awkward, like we're trying to be sports people, but you know, whatever. Maybe some of us are, so we'll be fine. Aaron, to you, final thoughts.
Thanks. I'd like to just talk about, you know, opening up the economy some more, because I truly believe it's vital. These next 60, 90 days are vitally important to our economy as a whole. You know, number one, we have to start opening up. When I say regionally, I mean by county in each state. You look at Wisconsin, they had a nice win. I think it was earlier this week with the state Supreme Court. But then you compare that to Michigan. We're so vast, and we have, you know, our pandemic is in two areas, but she shut down the whole state and wants to keep it down for the entire month. That's concerning. It concerns me that our politicians are politicizing this, and that, you know, we got to get back to work, and we've got to get this economy going again. And I just don't understand. I've been very fortunate because, you know, we raise our own money, so I'm talking to our investors. We collateralize our own money, so I'm talking to our customers. And then I've been traveling. So, and all I do is ask questions, just asking people questions. And I think that it's time to safely, and with a focus on health and safety, start opening up this economy by region. Okay. And that's by county. That's number one. Number two, I think everyone needs to be vocal with their politicians and writing them and let them know this next stimulus bill is vitally important, that it goes to the right sectors and there's not waste. Because if we don't do this right, and I'm not trying to scare people, but I kind of am, in that we need to be more vocal. We can't just let the government dictate this, because, you know, I think we talked about earlier, I think we're kind of getting through this. Okay. And we're realizing, yeah, it's a really bad flu. It's terrible. I get it. But we also have to start being very vocal that if we're healthy, we want to work, we want to get back to work. And we have to start dictating to the people that we elect that it's time and that they can't delay this. Like you look at Los Angeles County, he wants to another 3 months. That's absolutely ridiculous. He'll shut that whole state down. And that may be a slight exaggeration, but it's going to take some time to get this economy back. And it's going to take us and the right stimulus bill. And if we do both of those together, we can get through this thing. And if we don't, it's going to really drag on for a while. And that's what scares me. That's my parting shot.
I'm in agreement with you, and I get a lot of pushback for being in agreement with you, probably like you do too. I think people have forgotten what the Great Depression was like.
I'm not take up too much time, but what is the pushback back for healthy people that want to go back to work? If we want to sign, an agreement that, we're not going to sue if we get sick. I mean, you got to get this economy going safely. You have to do it.
I think we don't do a good enough job teaching economics in school. So you and I, being financial people, we've had lots of econ classes,
but
we know what it looks like.
And look how long that drug out. I mean, that's my concern. I owned a very large company then that I had to shut down. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. And I'm on this many calls. This is the time we have to save it.
Yeah, well, we didn't want to get political, but Aaron and I can't help ourselves. So let's just move on. And Ralph, final thoughts.
It's hard to add to the sentiments so far that have been expressed, and I concur with all, everything that's been said so far. I think the biggest thing is how quickly can we get the economy going again and open things up. Fine, do it safely. I think one of the big drivers. I was just reading something about Abbott Labs, instant tests that they've come out with, and there needs to be more of that. I mean, I think until a vaccine comes out, or at least the word of a vaccine that is actually working comes out and starts being available for mass quantity, we'll see some normalcy then. But I think in the meantime, testing is key. Yes, I concur. I completely agree that we need to open up the economy and get people that are healthy working again, because otherwise we are bankrupting our future generations the longer and longer this goes, because we are just literally printing money like it's going out of style, and obviously it's going to have some consequences at some point in the future. So the more quickly we can get back to normalcy, somewhat normalcy, the better.
Well, that's excellent. Great thoughts from everybody. I appreciate everybody's positivity, cautious optimism, good things, bad things. I love it. I hope to see all of you again soon. I think we can do this again in the fall. Hopefully we can do it partially live, but this is lots of really good information. Aaron, stay tuned. I think we're going to do a webinar on the pros and cons of opening and not opening, and get people from both sides. And I may want to tap you to, I know which side you're on, and I'm looking forward to moderating it. So let me pull that together and we'll stay in touch. Thank you, everybody that watched this around the nation, everybody in Wisconsin. God bless you all. Stay healthy, and thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.